Okay, good morning. Good morning to everybody here that has joined us. I am Robert Mantanona from Naval Facilities Institute, as working out of Port Hueneme as the Leadership Development Program Manager for Nafex. You are obviously here for the FY23 Annual Leadership Development Program Announcement and some of the information involved with that. We're going to go through kind of a very general overview of all the programs that are announced. Hello? If you can mute your mic, it would be most appreciated. Thank you. We are going to go over all the various DoD-DON programs, the Nafex Centric programs, and we are going to have speakers from some of the various programs, some of the graduates that we've had that have participated from Nafex. Again, the application period is 28 March through 27 May, and then we'll get started. So this is based off of the overall Nafex Commander's guidance. This is in line with filling our team with the highly qualified, motivated people and investing in them. And as you most likely know, our folks, our leadership is very in tune with investing in our workforce, and ensuring that you guys have the opportunities and the programs to help advance you in your personal and professional development. So I'm going to go fairly briefly over the slides, and I'm also going to provide these slides. It should be in the chat as well. But I wanted to save most of the time for our speakers to kind of address some of these programs. So the intended overview is developing leadership capability in the workforce based off the commander's guidance. Obviously, there is programs for a little bit of pretty much everybody, from entry level, our journey level, and our expert, and it kind of spans across the continuum of our workforce and the various segments that we address. We conduct an annual announcement of all leadership development programs, usually in the same time period, usually from March to May. That application period, it is an annual thing. That is the annual drumbeat for us. Please, during this period of time, definitely take a look, and obviously you have that interest in finding a program that's right for you. This current announcement is for the FY23, so all the selections that are made for this year will be for folks that will be going into their programs next year. Our FY22 selections were made last year, and they are currently going into their programs. You have the various, Nafex centric programs that are starting up, the Aspiring Leadership Development Program, the Leadership Development Program, and some of our DoD-DON folks that are, starting as well. The annual announcement, it is done that way to increase the visibility of these available programs. We try to align it with all the various start dates because we have programs going throughout the year, the calendar year. We wanted to have a very deliberate approach to career planning and appropriate program selections. And we've seen a trend that it results in a better overall plan and leadership, a leadership development plan that we've pushed out in this way. We've announced it. We have everybody on the same page. Everybody's part of that same drumbeat, and then we execute throughout the year. All the Nafex commands participate in this annual program announcement. So definitely, if you have any questions, please reach out to your local BD17, your training development group. And if I don't touch on anything that you had a specific question, please reach out to them. If not, please reach out to me. And if you are unsure of who your BD17 command representative is, please let me know, and I will point you in their direction. So we'll touch to one of the major things that I'm sure a lot of folks have that question is, who's eligible to apply? These are the minimum eligibility criteria. There are some additional criteria based on the program, whether it be level or maybe, whether or not you're DWIA coded or not DWIA coded. That's very dependent on the program that you are looking to apply for. But the minimum criteria are these following bullets, which is permanent or career conditional full-time NAVFAC employees not on a time-limited appointment and completed at least the first year of their probationary period. And I wanted to touch on that bullet because I think we have various folks throughout our workforce, like some of our foreign national folks, contractors, and I get that question a lot, which is, hey, are they eligible to apply? And unfortunately, the answer is no. This is for NAVFAC employees that are permanent or career conditional full-time NAVFAC employees and not in their probationary period. Other criteria: NAVFAC employee for the past 12 months. They need to meet the program level eligibility requirements on a permanent basis. They need to have completed their supervisory probationary period, if applicable. They need to be compliant with mandatory certification and training requirements. Have and maintain a performance rating of record of acceptable or equivalent. This needs to have been on a approved individual development plan, and again, depending on the program, there might be additional requirements. These are just the minimum ones. So we'll move on to the continuum of leadership programs, and this is kind of a visual to kind of get you an idea of the various segments of our workforce and the programs that address that segment. As you can see, on the very top, there's the entry, journey, and expert level. The various levels that are in that segment, entry level being GS 1 through 10, our journey level 11 and 12, and our expert 13s, 14s, and 15s. As you can see, there is a program for every segment of our workforce. And the next page is a little bit of a different visual for these programs. It's probably I like it a little bit better. It's a little bit more visually aesthetic. But this is also broken up and kind of organized in what type of programs they are. So these are DoD, DON programs. There's full-time programs, NAVFAC specific programs, and then on the very bottom, there's NAVFAC training that is open enrollment. All these programs and the actual in-depth descriptions, quotas, application forms, anything that resources that you need in regards to these programs are addressed on the top right in the that link right there at the Ccrc. If you have not leveraged the Ccrc page, please do so. Maybe after this brief and take a look. There's quite a bit of available resources for you, whether or not you're looking for leadership development programs or maybe you're looking for some other type of content. There are webinars that are available for you for your viewing as a NAVFAC employee. And then we'll move on to the next page. To answer I think this is quite one of the most important questions. Which program is right for you? And I can't answer that for you. You're going to have to answer that for yourself. And I think after this brief, if you haven't been thinking about, what program you're looking for or what you are aspiring to do, whether personally, professionally, I think you definitely need to understand that there are programs that touch every segment of our workforce to address all the needs of our workforce. There is no right size and there's no right answer depending on what you are trying to do personally and professionally. I would have a moment to take some introspective thought of what, where you are in your career, what you're trying to do, where you're trying to go, what your workload is like currently, what your life load If you have personal things going on, kind of figure out if taking on this next challenge is appropriate for you. And then after you've kind of honed down, honed what you're trying to do, and yes, I really wanted to, do one of these programs. I found the right one. This addresses some of the needs that I have. Uh, Sit down with your supervisor. We're in the IDP season. I think it is very necessary to have that conversation. Maybe they can see some blind spots that you're not seeing, and they can help you kind of address that and go, hey, I think that is this is the right fit. This program is the right fit for you, and you guys can kind of work that out and see, is it the right time for you? Is that the right program for you? Again, we are in the IDP season. Most of us have seen the Employee Competency Assessment, the ECA. If you have not done so, please go on to the Ccrc, go to the resources page, and definitely do that. It'll give you a nice snapshot of where you think you are currently or where you're at, as well as where your supervisor thinks you're at. And you kind of figuring out those gaps. Where are those gaps? Where are our blind spots? How are we going to get better? And what can I do to get better? And maybe what program will address these competency gaps. I've touched on those career goals and developmental needs with your supervisor, that piece. I would also, once you've done these, that, do a little bit more research, review some of these leadership program descriptions and requirements, and kind of make that smart plan there. So we're going to move on to the next page here, and this is a snapshot of the landing page for the Ccrc. Where can you learn more about these available leadership programs? Again, the website is on the bottom. The link is on the bottom. If you have not been there, the specific tab is Leadership Development Programs. It has a brief introduction, has the minimum eligibility requirements, a Leadership Individual Development Plan, IDP template can be found there. Some of the resume templates are there as well, and factor selection boards considered when reviewing leadership applications are also there as well. So let's move on to the next one. I wanted to touch specifically on the Nafex specific Centric leadership programs, and the two that we have are Aspiring Leader Development Program, the ALDP, and the Leadership Development Program, the LDP. This is to address, seeking the highly motivated and self-directed employees who have the potential to shape Nafex's future. This is what it means to be a leader in NAVFAC, and just to lead us in NAVFAC. So let's move forward a little bit here. This will be the first one. The first slide here is the Aspiring Leader Development Program. A little bit about it. It is more classroom based and it's more structured. It is 3 weeks over 6 months. It is a corporate-wide initiative to increase leadership capability. And I think the most important part for this program is it is utilized to kind of build a baseline, build a foundation of leadership concepts and competencies that maybe you have not utilized or leveraged before. This is that program to kind of help build that. That way, as you progress in your career and, depending on the timing, you apply to some of these other programs that are a little bit more toward the different segments, more of the journey level and the more expert level. This ALDP addresses the entry level through journey. The program overview, like I said, it's over 6 months. There's 3 weeks over 6 months. The cadre sizes are 25. We have 25 seats per cadre. Eligibility requirements is the GS7 through GS12. as well as our wage grade equivalents. They are listed right below the GS 7 through 12. Those are the equivalents of that segment. A couple things on this. This one you will be required to agree and sign a continuing service agreement. Obviously, this is an investment on you, and you're essentially have this obligation if you are to apply and to be selected, and we make that investment in you. Currently, it is an all virtual program. Due to COVID and safety restrictions. At this point, the decision has not been made at this point for FY23 of whether or not it will be virtual. If it is not, usually we have the East Coast and West Coast, and it'll be, we do our best to address the virtual environment for you, because we've had to pivot throughout the workforce and still continue to provide leadership development programs and enhancement of competencies. One additional note to the ALDP overview, on the very bottom it says graduates of entry-level programs are not eligible to apply for the ALDP until 1 year after graduation. This is our NADP interns as well as our PDC interns. So that is one other requirement that has to be fulfilled. If you graduated from either of those programs, the PDC or the NADP, you have to wait a full year after your graduation from either of those programs, and then you can apply to the ALDP. All right, the next one, a little bit of the curriculum of the ALDP. It has MBTI. There's various assessments. I think they do the MBTI, like I said, the LEI. There's a 360 assessment that is done as well, which kind of gives you a full, overview of where you're at, where you're going, what your supervisor, where your supervisor thinks you are in competency wise, as well as a good idea of what your colleagues think of you, your work and your performance and where your competencies are. Also, there's experiential learning activities. This is really dependent on, there are these activities no matter what. However, one thing to consider, because we've had to pivot, some of these are, these activities have taken a different way. We've addressed it in different ways. So, such as like the facility tours. Obviously, if we're doing a virtual environment, we're not doing a facility tour, over Zoom or MS Teams. But, some of these other things that you can do during this program, attend the presentations by local command leaders, watch lots of videos, the TED Talks, read books, articles. A lot of these resources are made available to you. All right, so let's move on to the next one. In addition to some of that curriculum, or to those assessments that we just spoke about, each week has a theme, and week 1 is holistic, know yourself and seek improvement. So I think that's a very important kind of step in leadership, is kind of really give yourself a real honest look and see where you really are. I know we all bring a great amount of skill sets, but we do need to have honest, conversation with ourselves, and kind of address, hey, where are my blind spots? Where are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Do I want to leverage strengths in a different way? Do I want to address my weaknesses? That's really something I really want to work on. That week 1 is really working on that, knowing yourself and how to seek that self-improvement. And week 2, teaming and coming together as a team to achieve a common goal. Obviously we work with, lots of different folks, different counterparts, different communities, and we have to leverage their various strengths as well. And really learning to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. That's really touched on week 2. And then week 3 is transformation. Kind of a culmination of all the things that you do, week 1 and 2, that culmination, that transformation of, the new, better you and the new competencies and enhancements that you've made and the strides that you've made. You'll be doing a capstone at the end of that 3rd week. And it really ties in all the lessons that you learned throughout the 3 weeks. All right. So currently we have the 2 cadre dates. You have the East Coast cadre as well as the West Coast cadre. These are the current dates slated. If depending on the demand signal that we see, if we have more than 50 people that are selected based off of the criteria, additional cadres might be opened as well to address that that large demand signal that we've gotten. But currently, these are the dates for the East Coast cadre and the West Coast cadre. Okay, the ALDP application. These are some of the application package things that need to be included. They are all on the Ccrc on that landing page under the description of the ALDP. All the documents that you will need are available there. Well, with the exception, I think, of the very bottom, which is if you are DWIA coded, please provide your transcript to your training rep. Moving on to the LDP. This is Nafex premier leadership development program or opportunity. This is broken up into 3 different levels to address the various segments in our workforce. It's leverages the best practices in leadership development. It also supports the vision for a high-performing workforce. The structure of the program is based more for experiential. One of the main differences, I think there was a question in my previous, brief, which was what's the difference between ALDP and LDP level 1, because it kind of addresses the same segment of the workforce. One of the major differences is in the LDP, a program requirement is to do rotations. That is an actual program requirement for it in the training plan, as well as it's not a classroom guided program. The ALDP is. The ALDP is 3 weeks in class with your cohort. The LDP is more tailored to the individual and what that individual needs. Obviously, you have the requirements, but those requirements are met specifically tailored to that person's competency gaps. So moving on, this is kind of the visualization of the LDP of the 3 levels. You have, LDP level 1, which is our GS-12 and GS-13 non-supervisors. The level 2 is the GS-12s, GS-13s, and that are supervisors, obviously the equivalents in the wage grade. And then our level 3s, which is the GS-14 and GS-15s. One large difference between the level 1 and the level 2 and 3, besides the fact that the applications are different, and they are different for a reason, is the level 1 is only a 1-year program. So it is a full sprint for that 1 year of meeting your program requirements. It's a lot shorter. Obviously, our level 2s and 3s, the requirements are appropriate to the levels of those grades. Each one of the various levels has a different objective. Level 1 is to develop that knowledge of Nafex business ops and give you that supervisory experience. Level 2, adoption and transfer of business practices, and to develop that professional network across Nafex. And our level 3 is to develop that HQ or headquarters awareness, corporate business operations and management issues, management expertise outside of their immediate career field or business line. All program levels focus on that corporate perspective and leadership competencies, mentoring, and personal assessment. And all 3 programs do have a 360 assessment, which will give you that snapshot of where you're at, that very good idea, where am I at with my current competencies and my proficiencies, how I see myself, how my colleagues see where I'm at, and where my supervisor, all those observable behaviors of those competencies. The LDP structure training plans, level, this is broken out over here up on the top. Level 1 is the various different types of support to support their program objectives. For level 1, we're kind of focusing on those rotations for like FM, BD, PWD, and supervisory. Our level 2, those are more echelon based and with an additional rotation to headquarters. And then our level 3, the headquarters rotation and 1 external rotation outside of Nafta. There is a specific development project for all programs, and that will be made appropriate based off of your competency needs as well as your level. There's a personal personal assessment and career planning. You are going to complete a 360 assessment and the leadership development assessment tool, the LDAT, which is the ECA and your ILDP as well. The education and training, there's mandatory attendance to the LDP training session in March 2023. Again, depending on whether or not there are safety concerns in regards to travel. Usually that is hosted at headquarters, and you get that experience of going to headquarters as a cohort, networking with some of your LDP counterparts in your cadre, and meeting and listening to our senior leaders, their perspectives, their leadership journey. If for whatever reason there is no travel, we had the last 2 years we've conducted it virtually. There is something to be said that there's a little bit of loss there, but we've part of leadership is to be agile and to adjust to the circumstances. In addition, you have the corporate perspective, attendance at leadership meetings and governance boards, interviews with senior leadership, and there's that mentoring piece as well. The LDP application. These are the elements of the application package. You can find this on the Ccrc under each level, under the description at that landing page. All the various forms that are required for that are there, so it outlines the application requirements and the actual files that you will need. With the exception of your DWIA transcript, if that's applicable to you, if you are DWIA coded. Please follow the application instructions carefully. Use only the current 2023 LDP application form, which is on the Ccrc landing page. Obviously, late, incomplete, or oversized applications will not be considered. 10-point font or larger, and the package cannot exceed 10 single-sided pages. The DWIA transcript is separate. That will not be used on the page count against you. So let's move on. And I just wanted to touch on a quote that we had. The single biggest way to impact an organization is to focus on leadership development. There is almost no limit to the potential of an organization that recruits good people, raises them up as leaders, and continually develops them. John Maxwell, American author, he is in the field of leadership development. I'm sure you may or may not have had any experience with that quote, or maybe you've read one of his books or seen his webinars. That really resonated with me, and I thought I'd share. Okay, so we are now at that point with our actual speakers from folks that have graduated from leadership development programs. I will do a brief introduction of them, and they will take 3 to 4 minutes of sharing their key takeaways and lessons learned from the program, some advice and guidance about the program or applying to the program. How has the program helped them professionally or personally, and if they would recommend the program specifically, and if not, well, why. Our first speaker will be Miss Terrell, Miss Terrelyn Lazo from Northwest. She was part of the Navy Senior Leader Seminar, that is GS15 and 05, 06, or actually 06 equivalents. Miss Terrelyn, are you here?
I am, Rob.
Hello, welcome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, I can. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for that introduction, Rob. Yes, I'm Terry Lazo. I am the Environmental Director here at Nafta Northwest. I was asked to talk a little bit about the Navy Senior Leader Seminar. Happy to do that. It was fantastic. So I attended the Navy Senior Leader Seminar in 2019, which was before COVID. And I attended that curriculum at the Navy Postgraduate School. It's a 9-day course, or it was at that time. I'm not sure if they're doing it virtually now or not, but at the time, it was a 9-day course. We started on Tuesday and went through the following Thursday. They did give us a little time off on Sunday, but it was excellent. I would highly recommend it. The goal of the course was to develop our abilities as change leaders to champion improvement. So it was very well designed, very similar to how the LDP courses are structured, in that there's information on wellness, and then how you know yourself, lots of prep questionnaires, the Myers-Briggs questionnaires, things like that. And then some excellent information on the Navy, and then how to be a change leader. But it was very well put together. PhDs, industry leaders were the speakers, program exercises. Of course, you're in with other 06s and GS15s across the Navy, so getting to know other folks, good networking, very well structured. The wellness part of it went throughout the course, looking at health, sleeping, exercises, some fantastic information about that. And then the just learning about yourself in that part of the curriculum, very helpful. And then how that applied later in the program with your ability to be a change leader. We're always doing transitions in NAVFAC and in the Navy, so we need to be able to execute that as well as we can. Excellent information about the Navy itself, a perspective fiscally and globally, so that we could see how our work fits into the grand scheme overall. So that was fantastic. And then some technology industry leaders sharing information. It was an excellent program. I would highly recommend it. Some things I took away, my knowledge about my emotional intelligence, I still apply that as I'm working with my teams, trying to remember I'm not a robot, and I understand where other folks are coming from. But how I approach conflict management, things like that, and how others might approach it differently. I've shared information from this program with the team here, our management team here. Very good information. Some of the health information I've shared with my family, and it's just been very beneficial. I continue to carry the knowledge I learned from that program, and so I would definitely recommend it. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I definitely appreciate you. I think you touched on something that I really wanted to kind of it resonated with me, and kind of reiterate that to the group. Definitely, when you go and do these programs, bring it back. Bring it back to your group. Bring it back to your team. Maybe that'll get them interested as well. Maybe it'll be the appropriate time or the right time for them to start thinking about that program as well. But yes, definitely bring all that good information back, because I think sometimes we're so stuck in our job that we forget, what is there's other things to enhance ourselves. Did I have any questions for Miss Lazo in regards to NSLS? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Terry. Oh, actually, we got Miss Lorraine Shaughnessy.
Rob, hi, Ms. Lazo. Thanks so much for sharing. I guess I had a question. Some of the assessments you're talking about are assessments we're taking in the ALDP, and I guess I was wondering, Rob, if you could potentially, or Ms. Lazo, you may know how the assessments we're taking or the level we're taking differ from what is in that program.
I'll jump in on that, Carolyn.
Thanks,
No, not a problem. Yeah. So to address that, Lorraine, a lot of those assessments actually are across the board. To tell you the truth, MBTI is utilized at pretty much all levels. There's no set level. You're actually, in some cases, the ALDP actually is. We're getting a lot of bang for our buck, because the assessments that are given to the ALDP, even the LDP as well, are the same assessments that NSLS, that are NPS, which is Naval Postgraduate School, they utilize as well. We're leveraging those same assessments. Hopefully that answers your question, Lorraine. Oh, good. Awesome. Did I have any other questions for Miss Terry Lazo? No. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Terry, for joining us and spending some time with us. Also sharing your insight into the NSLS. If it would be okay to share your information for anybody who maybe reaches to me offsite, or offline, may I share that with them?
Absolutely. Be happy to talk to them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry.
No
So
problem.
thank you. So our next speaker is for Bridging the Gap, Mr. Tom Barstow from Mid-Atlantic. He is the business director at Mid-Atlantic. I'm sure quite a few of you from the East Coast are familiar with him. And if not, Tom, are we good? I don't know. We didn't get a mic check earlier.
Yeah, so can you hear me, Rob? I'm on the phone as well, because I was having some connectivity problems with Teams and I didn't want to lose it. Is that good?
Yeah, no, you're totally fine, sir. Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay. Hey, hello, everyone. Good morning. And yeah, business director, Nafex Mid-Atlantic. So I'm a civil engineer by trade, but leadership and group dynamics have always fascinated me. So absolutely thrilled to be working with Rob, Roz, and the whole total force development community, especially on these programs. So I'll talk to you about Bridging the Gap, and I think also the FEI as well. And Bridging the Gap is a bit of a different program. So it's not residential, unlike NSLS or FEI. So this is spread out over 12 months, and the audience is all Navy civilians. So whereas NSLS, you have the military, Bridging the Gap is all civilians, GS 14 and 15. And I guess I would maybe also title it, So You Want to Be an SES? And so it's a combination of practical leadership experiences and training, and lots of great speakers as well on that, but also very practical advice and guidance on putting together an application package to be an SES. So 14s and 15s can apply to be SESs. And so it really leads you through the executive core qualifications with that. And so you have a little bit of the self-awareness, not as much as in the NSLS, but you do have an element of that. I think there was probably 80 people in our cadre, and I think maybe half a dozen or so were from Nafex. So a lot of folks from NavAir and NavC are doing it. And I think it's probably still more of a hybrid. Even when I took it pre-COVID, if you were not in the DC metro area, you did a lot of the sessions over the phone. So now I would expect it would be Teams. If you're in the DC metro area, it's a lot in person. So you have monthly brown bag lunch talks and discussions like that. And I think you're there for perhaps two 3-day sessions actually in DC. And you do have a project at the end. So you work in teams. I can't remember, 8 or 10 people per team for that. So like I said, kind of a combination of practical leadership experience. But certainly, if you want to join the SES world, it is absolutely imperative you do something like this. Just to, even if you decide you go, oh, I'm kind of on the fence, it might lead you one way or the other. There is a requirement to have 40 hours of SES shadowing, and so that becomes a lot easier if you're in the DC metro area. I think probably 80 or 90% of the DoD SES positions are within Virginia, Maryland, DC. So if you are in Norfolk or Jacksonville, becomes a little bit tougher to do that, but it can be done. So anyway, just wanted to let you know that that's part of the program as well. Half the time, if you are really interested in being an SES, you're going to love 100% of the program. If you go early on, you go, yeah, I don't think SES is for me. A lot of it may not apply, but it does force you, even if you don't want to be an SES, to look at your work history and where you want to go in terms of executive core qualifications. One of the most valuable things for me was they said, okay, for each member in the cadre, take your top 10 career highlights and kind of bin them into those 5 executive core qualification areas. And it kind of forces you to say, oh, maybe I'm heavy in one, light on another. And it kind of gives you a good data point as far as your own career on that one. So anyway, that's a little bit about bridging the gap. Any questions specific to that? And again, like Terry, I'm happy to speak afterwards with you, offline, anything like that. I know Rob will provide our point of contact information.
Did we have any questions for
Okay.
Mr. Barstow? No. Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir.
Tom, so how was the process like? I know bridging the gap is a very limited number of people that get selected. How was the process for you going through the application process?
Gosh, it's been a few years since I've done that one. And I can't remember if it was a single page application. I honestly have forgotten on that one, but I thought it was just a single page and kind of how you had to look at what you hope to get out of the program. And this may be one that required a single page resume, which was also very helpful. If you are someone like me who's got a USA Jobs interview that exceeds 1 page, it forces you to put all of your career on one sheet of paper. And so that was useful as well. But I don't necessarily know that you had to write a huge amount. I think it was how this fits in with your career, what you hope to gain for it. I think it's very similar in terms of what the expectations are for LDP and how this fits into your career and how it can help Nafex, if I remember correctly.
Okay. And also going
oh.
into the program, you knew what your long-term goal was. How has it been for you after finishing the program? Is this something you think you want to pursue, or it was more for the education?
Well, I will tell you, Yeah, so I guess I went into it unsure of whether I wanted to be an SES or not. And I came out of the program knowing that I did not want to pursue SES. So kind of like doing like an internship or something like that, you know, it helped me decide what I also don't want to do compared to what I do want to do. So so that was helpful. It didn't, you know, I went down, or I didn't go down a career path that I would have been surprised at. So going through Bridging the Gap kind of put the full visibility on the world of SES, good, bad, and you know, everything in between. And so for me, it was valuable to know that I did not want to pursue SES.
Perfect. One thing I wanted to jump in on there, Tom. The application has evolved a little bit more than one page. There is that writing piece that's addressed. The full application is on the Ccrc, but it is a little bit more in depth than one page at this time. And also NAVFAC this year, FY22, we've had 3 folks that were selected for Bridging the Gap. Did we have any other questions for Tom? Nope. Okay, so Tom is also a graduate of the Federal Executive Institute. That's a GS14 or 15 program. Tom, he's going to also speak about that program as well and address any questions from that.
Yeah, very good. So FEI, Federal Executive Institute, is actually a place. It is an OPM, one of the OPM training centers. It is in Charlottesville, Virginia. If you're familiar with the area, it is on Route 29, about a mile north of John Paul Jones Arena, so a bit off campus of UVA, or off the grounds, I guess I should say. I have a son at the university, so I better be getting campus and grounds correct. But I've been to both NSLS and FEI, and so you know, Terry talked about, you know, the program, the intensity, and I think it was 9 days we talked about. So FEI is a full month residential. So I think you're allowed to go and leave like 2 weekends. So it is, I think, 23 days of full education. And when I say full, it is pretty intense. The audience is primarily GS15s and new SESers. I think if you're a GS14, there is a waiver process to do that. And I think also they've started taking applicants from private industry. It's a pretty expensive program and facility to maintain. So I think they're looking to increase their audience on that one. But it was about 90% GS15s and about 10% SESers. And so we had, I think, 66 people in our cadre, and we were in groups of 8 or 9 doing that. And these are groups that you are with for the entire month, and you meet them on day 1. You will eat with them, you will exercise with them, you will study with them, you will socialize with them. And so when I say intense, your day starts roughly about 6 a.m. With a fitness program. And I don't know that it's mandatory, but I will say highly encouraged. And I don't know of anyone out of the 66 that did not do the fitness program. So that's an hour every morning, Monday through Friday. And then your day would end usually at, 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. So it was certainly beyond the 40 hours a week. You were encouraged to socialize afterwards, go out in town and with your group and do things like that as well. It was intense, and there was a lot of emotions, a lot of sharing. We talked about self-awareness, and if it was NSLS on steroids, it was probably maybe 5 times more intense in terms of what came out of it. A lot of emotions, a lot of personal stories. One of the people in my group was I think a GS15 at the Department of Labor, and we learned his story. He was originally from, I think, Cameroon, and he was jailed and tortured as a political prisoner. And so, those are the types of stories that you hear and you go, wow, this is pretty intense. There are a lot of tears throughout, a lot of hugging. It is something that, so I, as an extrovert, really enjoyed the program. There were a lot of exercises in terms of group exercises and dynamics and sharing and working together, kind of games that you would have to do. If you're an introvert, you are going to be exhausted. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not a good program. However, it was a lot for the introverts to handle on it. As Terry spoke about, lots of great instructors, and they're coming from all over the world. You have a set curriculum, and it's based on really government, democracy, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution, and breaking through all those. That's the fundamental. It's the Leadership for a Democratic Society is the class name. But you also had different options for classes. And so we had, I took one class on Russia, and this was in 2014 when Russia had invaded Crimea. And our instructor was a native Russian who had taught at Moscow State University or University of Moscow, something like that. And so, what's happening in the Ukraine really resonates today in terms of what we learned, 8 years ago from that. Took a class in negotiations. And to give you an idea, so some of the NSLF classes were probably 1 hour or an hour and a half. In Federal Executive Institute having a full month, they're 4 to 8 hours at a pop. So when you talk about MBTI, Myers-Briggs, we went beyond just the, hey, this is who I am and this is what it means. We probably spent 4 to 6 hours discussing, the elements of Myers-Briggs. I took an improv class, and so you've got these things you could do like ropes classes, things like that, but I took one on improv, and that's to kind of be a little bit more, flexible and being able to adjust and agile on that. And that was hosted at James Monroe's birthplace. So just outside Charlottesville, you have opportunities to go to Monticello, UVA for field trips as a team or as a group. Again, I said that, you're supposed to socialize in town and go out and work with your teammates as well. There's an individual project that you'll be working on. The self-awareness is only part of it. You've got the personal and professional development. On the personal side, you will have fitness, nutrition, exercise. Day one, I think they gave us a fitness test where you did push-ups and a flexibility drill. They did blood work on us to see exactly what our diet should be and where to go. A lot of work on mental health, emotional intelligence, whether you're a type A or a type B person, stress management, and it was a full week of it, or a full month of it. I will say that I still keep up with some of my team members. Team 3 we were, so good for us. And I still refer back to my notes 8 years later. So this is absolutely something I would recommend if you have the ability to do so. You do have to, I'll say, unplug from work for 4 weeks, the full month. So NSLS, you got 2 weeks, but Federal Executive Institute, it is 4 full weeks, and it is certainly best to leave all of your work back at work and just focus on that program. Any questions for me?
Yeah, Tom, I have one more question for you. So this sounds like working on yourself type of program, or like a self-therapy program. So what is the long-term goal for this? Because I know bridging the gap is kind of you deciding if this is the path you want to go with the SES direction.
Sure.
What is this particular program focus on?
So some people will use it as a prerequisite for SES training. And so for some commands, they make it mandatory for their GS-15s to go and for all of their SESers. And so it is a federal audience. And so I think there were maybe 3 of us out of 66 from the Navy, maybe 2 or 3 from the Army, and maybe 1 or 2 from the Air Force. So it was a very small representation from DOD. But the expectation is you become a better federal executive, kind of hence the name, for that in all parts of it. And, whether it is strategic management, understanding, why we are doing what we do on the things, the tactical of, learning about Russia and China, and how that plays in. For me personally, it was, I will say, life affirming. And what I mean by that is I've always felt as an engineer, kind of the square peg, round hole. I probably should never have been an engineer because I have an affinity for the people side of it, but I was good with numbers. So here I am as an engineer. That's why I started off with the leadership and group dynamics. And it felt I was able to then say, okay, hey, I can contribute as a oddball, engineer. My Myers-Briggs is ENFP, not exactly your typical engineer. And so coming out of FEI, I felt that was pretty career affirming, that I could still add value to the Navy with that. My friend Dave Kerfman, now chief engineer, he had called it life changing when he took it as well. So it is probably more akin to an executive management program at a university that some of the CEC go to for a month.
Any other questions for Tom, or a follow-up on that?
Tom, maybe you can help us out. This is Jennifer, or it might be for the facilitator here, but these sound like some great opportunities. Just a little bit confused on which direction to go to: the NFI programs, the FEI programs, the NFLF programs. Is there a mentoring program that can kind of match up with you, or a guidance counselor, if you will, to discuss these opportunities, to know which one should be the first one?
Yeah.
Is there any
so if I
guidance
had to, so I've been to all three of them, and if I had to do it, I would say I would start with LDP, and so that goes back years for me. But that is, depending on if you're a GS 12 or 13, and certainly probably a 14 would help. Then I would go bridging the gap. NSLS is required for all 15s. As a 14, you're not going to be going to that. The FEI, they do have waivers for GS 14. Again, I think it's trying to drum up business, and so. That would be a logical step. If you're a 14, you could apply as a waiver to get into FEI. NSLS will be a step down in intensity, though, for that, if that helps.
Okay, and all of this is on the Ccrc website?
All the information, yes, all the information for all the various programs, the requirement for the grade, the brochures, the FAQs for each of those individual, as well as the quotas, and whether it's a DoD or DON program, that is all on the Ccrc.
And are there a list of attendees, past attendees in these programs, where maybe I could reach out to one or two to discuss it with them?
I believe each of the individual commands have that list. I have the overall master list. If you would like to reach out to me, I can provide you past graduates. Please feel free to do so. There is no centralized list except for like the LDP and the ALDP, which are Nafex centric. There's actually, bios and pictures of them, as well as the testimonials for the Nafex specific programs. However, if you would like to get in touch with any of the past participants for other programs, I have that list available, and you can reach out to me at any time.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I wasn't able to get on MS Teams. It's offline today. What is your name?
My name is Robert Mantanona. I'm also listed on the Ccrc. Up in probably the top of that landing page for leadership development programs. My email is, I can put it in the chat, or it's robert.j.mantanona@us.navy.mil.
Okay, thank you so much.
Not a problem. Any other follow-up questions for Tom on Federal Executive Institute or FEI? No? Okay. Tom, thank you so much again. As always, it is been a pleasure for having you share your insight with the various programs and as well as the experience that you had for that program. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Tom. Again, if you wanted to follow up with Tom, or if you need his information and you want to speak offline, if you think of a question down the road, please reach out to me and I will facilitate something and provide you his contact. So the next speaker. Oh yes, I probably did drop off the .civ LJ. My apologies, but I'll share it in the chat as well. The next speaker for the next program we have is for the Defense Contract Audit Agency Directors Development Program and Leadership, which is the DCAA DDPL. This is a another DoD-DON program that is, let me see, the program level for that would be GS 13 through GS 15s. We have Miss Stephanie McManus from Atlantic. She's a supervisory physical scientist. Stephanie, are you with us today? Or did you have any issues?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't have camera, but I have sound.
No, not a problem.
Thank you. And do you still want me to do a quick mention of DoD ELDP as
yes.
well? Okay.
When we get to that, we'll toward the end of your discussion with DC or your insight on DCAA, I do want to put that little extra caveat to that.
Okay, thank you.
Not a problem.
Well, the first program I'm talking about is DCAA, which is Defense Contract Audit Agency, Directors Development Program and Leadership. And as Rob said, is open to GS 13s to 15s. For my class, we started out with about 30 people. They look to bring in 25 to 40 people. And it is predominantly a leadership program developed by the DCAA's SES, and it is a requirement for the DCAA folks to move up into positions of senior leadership. So as such, more than half the class is DCAA. And when I looked at it, I would say it started out, there was 113 total in the program. That person came from DCAA. And then starting out, there was maybe 40% 14s, and people have gotten promoted throughout this, because for DCAA, they rotate every 2 years like our military. So they're changing and getting promotions and those types of things. So you will see a shift in your class as you go through. Other agencies, DITRA, the Army, the Air Force, and the Corps of Engineers were also had anywhere from 1 to 3 people in the course. I'm right now the only Nafex person. Typically, I think Nafex look to send 1 to 3 on average for previous cadres. This program, and talking to Mr. Barstow after the West Coast communication, a short way to describe it would probably be an executive MBA program moving really quickly. And the reason why I say that is it's an 18-month program. And on average, you're out of the office maybe 1 week plus weekends every 4 to 5 weeks. And so there is 7 universities that you go to, and their programs last anywhere from 4 to 5 days, and some go into the weekends, and you definitely are traveling on your weekends. And so the universities will each present a different one of the executive core qualifications. So, and they're addressing overall 10 core competencies. So you will have those PhDs that are an expert that deliver these executive MBA programs speaking to you for about a week. You will have more reading than you ever remember from your college career. They send out several hundred pages for you to read before you get there. And then every night you probably get 3 to 5 more case pages. So a couple hundred anywhere from 100 to 200 pages each night as well. You start very early in the morning, but you start that way mostly because you are going to be on a different team and you will be assessing the case studies and presenting it to the class. And then as you talk to the professors and you go through that session, then they might switch teams, and during lunchtime, you're going to present something else. And then overnight, you'll get a different assignment to come back the next morning and present. So you are always on. I think, as Mr. Barstow said, one of the most important things is to make sure that you have this support back at home, both home and work, because you really are in you are not able to communicate. You're not really able to take calls. For DCAA, their senior leadership has made it a priority, and they expect the same from other agencies. I know with each of the cadres, folks from other agencies have been asked not to come back in the middle of the program because they have been the ones running out with their phone to the ear or coming back late, and they basically said, no, that's not what this is about. So I was very lucky to have supportive leadership and supportive folks that could act for me while I was gone. So please make sure you have that in place, because they take it very seriously, and you really are committing a lot of time, both before you go with all the readings and the assessments, and then each morning, lunch, and evening with your teams to prepare the next case studies and the presentations. The universities are UNC, Penn State, UVA Darden, Texas, McCombs, Wharton, Northwest, and Harvard. And like I said, each one has a specific competency that they're working on. The McCombs one does have the emotional intelligence. They go through a lot of personal and social things. It's not at the Myers-Briggs or 360. It's really digs into you personally, and similar to what Mr. Barstow said, there is a lot of self-assessment, emotions. It usually happens more than halfway through your cadre time, so you've gotten to know everybody, and it's very intense from that. You also go to warfighting headquarters, college. We saw the Futures Command, Air War College, Army War College, Naval Postgraduate School. And again, as the folks before me spoke, when you have the expert in those fields, I mean, we talked when I went to postgraduate school, it was all about what to expect coming with Ukraine, and everything they said happened. So it was very interesting, very relevant and current, I guess is the way to say that. And you're going to be prepared. And if you're not, you're going to look up that night and spend that night studying, so you go in the next day prepared. So plan to spend a lot of time. So far for me, I'm in the COVID class, so we're taking a little bit longer to graduate than others, but it is technically, they plan to be 18 months. You spend a week plus the weekends to travel there about once every 4 to 5 weeks. And for me, the advantages, just like everyone else talked about, is the paying it forward. There's so many things that you can bring back to your group and go through it again. And, you know, they always say, if you teach something, that's how you really learn it. So when you bring it back to your folks and you're sharing that, not only are you helping them and sharing that, but you learn it better. And nothing is more exciting than when they turn that around and remind you of something you talked about from one of your programs, because you know they heard you. We've even used some of the skill sets with our clients in client meetings. So I really think it is a highly beneficial program. It's well worth the investment. And just like the other programs we talked about, you form lifelong relationships with folks all across DoD, and also the professors. And you know, once you've taken those students, those classes, they consider you an alumni, and they're reaching out to you, and they're, you know, checking in and inviting you to participate in different seminars. So it is very life-changing. It's very worth it, but it is a lot of effort. So be prepared to be offline and putting the time in. Does anybody have any questions on the DCAA Developmental Program in Leadership?
I don't see any hands, and I don't see anything in chat, Stephanie. I think I won't have you share about the ELDP at least this year.
Okay.
I just wanted to jump in on that. The ELDP is usually announced annually. Thinking about it, unfortunately, due to COVID and the fact that it's been um, canceled and postponed and moved to the right, unfortunately, the ELDP we won't. They are not taking any FY23 applicants at this time. So we won't really discuss that. The information for the Executive Leadership Development Program, GS12 through GS14s or 03 or 04s, that is available on the Ccrc. But thank you. Definitely, I do appreciate that you were willing to share a little bit of the inside of the program. But at this point, I don't know if it's really relevant. We could probably have you for a future session if you're available.
Certainly, and if anybody is doing their IDP long term and has that on there, you're welcome to give them my information, or you guys can contact me as well. So I'm happy to share that if someone's planning out for the future. I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. I definitely appreciate that. So if we don't have any other questions for you, Ms. McManus, we'll move to the next program, which is another. I think it's the last of our DoD/DON programs graduates. This is the Defense Civilian Emerging Leader Program, the DCELP. It is the grade level for that, or the folks that are eligible for that, is the GS7 through 12s, as well as any of the wage grade equivalents. This is from entry level to journey level. We have Mr. Cameron Stewart from XWIC joining us once again. Cameron, are you there?
I should be here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I was on the West Coast and I'm here on the East Coast one, so it's great to be here again. I very much treasure what I've gained from my participation in the DCELP, as well as I've also graduated of the Level 1 Nafex Ldp. And this is one small way to try and pay it forward. I also try to find other ways to share what I've learned with my colleagues and others as another way to try and pay it forward, in addition to just applying what I've gained from these programs in my personal and professional life. So as Robert mentioned, the DCELP is for entry level to journeyman. You do get people who are both in supervisory and non-supervisory positions in that program. It's very similar to the Nafex ALDP. There are some differences. The ALDP sounds like it's a 3-week course, whereas the DCELP is a 4-week course spread across 4 months. In non-COVID times, it takes place at a DoD conference facility in Massachusetts. We'll see for this upcoming fiscal year whether you actually go there or if you do it virtually. The first week, the focus is on knowing yourself, and that's where the self-assessment and 360 come into play, and I've been talked about for the other programs. The second week, express yourself, learning how to better communicate orally as well as in written form. The third week is on building teams, and the fourth week is on leading teams. You have somewhere around, I think, 144 total in each intake, and they do this twice a year. And each intake is divided into 4 teams, and you're with that team the entire time of the program, but each week that you're in person, you'll be paired up with one of the other 4 teams as well. So you get opportunities to develop relationships and social networking, both within your team as well as with the other teams that are in the program. And some of my key takeaways from that are, as is often mentioned by others with regards to these types of programs, you get into it, you get out of it what you put into it. And this applies not just when you're in the program, but also after the program. If you go through the program, have this great experience, but then forget and don't apply what you've been learning and developing, then it's not really having the effect it should have in your personal and professional life. And so, you know, that's where your ILDP and other things that that NAVFAC and the Navy and leadership try to encourage us to do really can help you take from what you get in these programs and apply it effectively in your career. I would say that, as has also been mentioned by others today, that having good support from your supervisor is really important. And while this isn't anywhere near as intense as some of these other programs, which is expected because this is more of an early in your career type of development program, still, if you can, as Mr. Barstow said, unplug from work while you're there most of the time, it really helps you to get the most you can out of it, because while it may not be as intense, you're having a great opportunity to build on the things that you're learning, not just within the class, but outside the class with your team. I was very involved with my team and doing things together as a team outside of the classroom that weren't mandatory, but were great ways to build on what we were learning, as well as to build up those relationships with fellow people that are going through the same things you're going through, and you may have a chance to work with them outside of the program in your career. So I would definitely recommend, if you can, to unplug from work. And since it's 1 week each month, that should be doable if you have that support from your supervisor. And I would say that's about all I really wanted to share, except that I would very much recommend it if you're thinking of this sort of thing. It's if you're going back and forth between the NAVFAC, ALDP, and the DCELP, I guess part of that comes down to whether you can spend 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whether you want to do this program just within NAVFAC and have your team be fellow NAVFAC employees, or if you want to reach out and get to know others throughout the DoD, because the DCLP is DoD wide. And if you want to get the 4-week experience versus a 3-week experience where you can spend a bit more time in the classroom and with your team. But definitely very much recommend it, as well as the LDP. And anyone that's considering doing this, you know, put the time into it, and you will very much be rewarded for it. Over.
Thank you, Cameron. One caveat onto that, definitely, I think he hit quite a few of the great snapshot of the DCLP. Because it is a DoD program, you will also have to compete at that next level. The selections. So if you are nominated by NAVFAC, and that kind of goes across the board for all the DoD DON programs, we're not guaranteed any slots. You'll be competing at that next level, whatever level that is. So if it's a DON program, you'll be competing with other folks as a NAVFAC nominee against other SysCom nominees as well, and they make the selections as well. So if selected at our level as a nominee, then you would compete at whatever level is appropriate to that program. So for the DCELP, because there are various agencies and components involved, you're going to be competing at that level. So that's something also to keep in mind. Thank you, Cameron. Did I have any questions for Cameron in regards to the DCELP? Okay, and if not, we're gonna we have 3 speakers. Oh, actually, I think I see something in chat. Is there a maximum number of programs we can compete for at one time, being none are guaranteed? Unfortunately, we do have a requirement. You can unfortunately only select one program that you will be competing for at a time, or selected for per annual year. So what I would suggest in regards to that, and I know that nothing's, unfortunately nothing's guaranteed. You, for each year, maybe if you take you apply for a DoD DON program, maybe the following year you apply for maybe a Nafex Centric program. Okay. Any other questions? And yes, yeah. Nope. Okay. So we're going to move on to the Nafex Centric programs, and our first speaker for that, which is going to be the ALDP, the Aspiring Leader Development Program, which is the equivalent of the DCELP, but it's the Nafex Centric version. This is GS7 through GS12s. That is also, but you're only going to be competing at the NAVFAC level. So if you're selected by NAVFAC, you are selected for that program. We have Miss Emily Ann Waint. I'm so sorry if I butchered that last name. She's also from XWIC.
That's okay, Robert. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Emmy,
Right.
Please share.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and you did a great job describing the program. ALDP was amazing for me. I keep telling people in the office that they should apply for. Even it's from 7 to 12, and normally you're not a supervisor, but you can still be a leader without being supervising. And I really enjoyed the program. But the most beneficial element to me, just like the other programs, was the personality influence performance. That's where you learn about yourself, and you take the assessments, and not just you. People around you will take the assessments as well, and you really learn how learn about you, but how people think you are. And it was great just because I didn't know about some things about myself, and it was good to know that I could improve. And then on the 3 weeks, we had, first week we learn about ourselves, the second week we work as a team, and the third week, how can we improve? How can we apply? But it was just great to learn and discover. It's like you're meeting yourself. You're discovering and exploring your weakness and traits. The second aspect that I really enjoyed was working on a team. I wish we were in person. It was online last year, but it worked fine. I actually made friends through that period. And one thing that really helped me when we were working, I'm at XWIC, and we work with different bases, OCONUS, and sometimes it's hard to get answers from them. And I remember last year I had a problem. We were trying to find a facility in Australia, and especially like small bases when we don't have a lot of active duty, or even a public works department. It's hard to find anyone that will answer to you. And I remember that one of the property records card, I saw a name that I knew that name. And it was one person that was from my class, and I reached out to her, and she helped me. So I can really say that the network that you build on the program can really help you even on your daily basis task. But even the other groups in my team, in my office, was able to reach out to her, and they helped her as well. But that's pretty much all from me. I really liked the program. I really enjoyed. It was very similar to the other ones. I mean, especially the last one, the DCELP. But I highly recommend it.
Thank you, Emmy. I wanted to reiterate that one point about networking. These NAVFAC programs, especially the ALDP and the LDP, it's really about building your network across our enterprise. And as you can see, Emmy is a prime example of that. She's able to, utilize that new network, from her cohort, learn a little bit of some of the things that maybe she wasn't familiar with in NAVFAC, what the other pieces of the puzzle. But did I have any other any questions for Emmy about the ALDP? No? Okay. moving on, Emmy, thank you again for sharing and joining me. I definitely appreciated your time, as all the speakers. I appreciate your time and your experience as well. And one other touch point, it has not been decided yet for travel in regards to the ALDP. We are hoping that there will be travel involved. I think there was a question in the chat in regards to where it would be located. Usually we have the East Coast, West Coast, and most of the time it would be, if there is travel involved, it would be in that, most likely that area of responsibility. For the East Coast, the land AOR. For the West Coast, really dependent on what the demand signal requires, which will most likely be the PAC AOR area. So moving on to the next speaker. Thank you, Emmy. We're going to go to, unfortunately, we have the NAVFAC Leadership Development LDP Level 2, Mr. Anthony King. I don't know, Anthony, I think he had some difficulties logging on. Anthony, are you with us? Tony? Nope. Okay, so we did, unfortunately, one of our speakers had some technical difficulties. I'm going to move on to our last speaker, who is also a NAVFAC Leadership Development Program graduate. This is for the LDP Level 3. As we mentioned before, the grade level requirements for the Level 3 is GS 14s and 15s. This is Mr. Travis Baker from Southeast. Travis, are you with us? Hello, Travis? Just bear with me. Let me see if I think Travis Baker. Let me, I must be muted. Yes, you are, sir. You are muted. Which number are you calling in from, Travis? Oh, okay. While Mr. Baker is working on the that logistics problem, 912, I'll see if I can unmute you. One thing I forgot to mention regarding the DCLP, and this applies to the NAVFAC ALDP and Level 1 LDP, you don't have to want to be a supervisor to take these programs and be rewarded for participating in them. All of them give you skills and experience that can help you in whatever position you have and in whatever organization you work in. Yes, that's 100% true. I would definitely kind of.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Trav.
Perfect.
Well, hey, we adjust and we adapt. This is Mr. Travis Baker, a recent LDP Level 3 graduate from Southeast. Travis, please take it away.
Yeah, so the good news is you don't have to know how to operate a phone to be able to get into the LDP. So I apologize about that delay. All right, so Travis Baker, I'm from Southeast. I'm actually the resident engineer at the Roink Trident for the Kings Bay Dry Dock project. I graduated last year, was impacted a little bit by COVID, obviously, got a little bit delay for the program. It was actually in DC when COVID struck and kind of got trapped with travel. So it's a fun experience, but I think everybody's probably got their own stories, so I won't burden you with mine. No, so basically, I would definitely highly recommend the program. There's a lot of reasons to pursue the LDP. For me, a couple of different reasons I'll share with you. Number one, it provided really great opportunities for exposure both to the command and everything it kind of has to offer, as well as exposing me to the command, giving me an opportunity to build relationships with leaders at pretty much every level. One example that was really great was I had actually had an opportunity to brief the chief 2 different times, which were directly related to my being in the LDP program. And for anybody who's not had an opportunity to brief admirals, especially the chief, the experience of putting together a presentation for that level of audience is unique, and it's very educational. And to be honest with you, it is an extremely valuable skill set to have in putting together talking points and being able to deliver in front of that audience, understanding the type of content that they want to hear, how to condense really complex information down to bite-sized chunks and still have it, you know, something that is comprehensible and really drive decisions if it's a decision-type brief. So that was a great opportunity for me there. The other thing is, and I'll share this for anybody who gets in, whether you're in a level 1, 2, or 3, the program really opens up opportunities for training that wouldn't otherwise be available. You know, at the very least, you're going to get priority for certain types of trainings as long as it's available. My favorite that I had an opportunity to do, and I would highly recommend regardless of how you get there, is the Capitol Hill Workshop. My experience there was and I hate to continue to use the cliche of life-changing, but it's indescribable to really kind of share the room with people of that level of experience and world knowledge. Having those people talk directly to you is eye-opening and absolutely worth the time. One of the other things that I really found valuable with the program was the 360 assessment. You know, I do pride myself in trying to be self-aware and try to, you know, understand how people are interpreting me, you know, and making sure that I'm effective in communicating. One of the biggest challenges, I think, as we grow in our careers is to understand how to be flexible in our interactions with the people around us and understand that those people that we're interfacing with, they have their own perceptions, and, you know, learning how to have that emotional intelligence and interact with people in a way that is productive and supporting them, you know, that's something that you can strive for. But the 360 assessment really allows you to see that raw feedback. And, you know, it's not always the most pleasant thing to read what your weaknesses are, because you specifically want to get that kind of feedback. But, you know, growth really doesn't happen in a painless environment. So I think it was very super valuable for me. Again, there's a lot of things that I continue to work on that is directly related to the feedback that I got in those types of assessments. So super valuable for me as well. Let's see, one of the other things that I really enjoyed about the program, and again, for the level 3, I had both a month rotation outside of the command and a 1-month rotation at headquarters. One of the things that I would recommend is, if you get the opportunity to do that, make sure you do a rotation that is completely different than what you do in your daily life. You want to try to expose yourself to different perspectives and a different role. For me, I actually spent my time with the Chief Management Officer, Mr. Pollock, and that was an extremely valuable experience for me. I mean, his experience, surprisingly, actually was similar to mine in a lot of ways, but obviously he's moved away from the engineering side and into the business side. His team was incredible. I had an opportunity to sit down and spend some time, you know, at depth with each of his team members, and you know, it really opens your eyes to the things that you know, you don't ever really consider. And you know, I think we all at every level, right, every echelon, you kind of look at your particular group as being the superstars and really doing a great job, and you know, everybody falls into the trap of, you know, what's going on up there or what's going on down there. You know, spending time at these, you know, other levels allows you to understand the challenges that they're working through and trying to support you know, and so I think it's valuable to get that different perspective. to get outside of your own lane, and I think it helps both with empathy, and it helps with understanding when you have to interface with these various entities or these people, you have a better perspective on what they may need from you and why it's important. And so it makes you better at accomplishing your own role when you're interfacing, with people who are supporting you. So that's a huge recommendation for me, is make sure you get outside of your particular skill set when you do your rotations. The other thing I did for my outside rotation is I did an operational command and really tried to drive myself into the perspective of a warfighter command, and that was great. Really understanding, again, notionally, I think most people can understand what the motivations would likely be there. But again, being embedded with the group, having direct exposure to, and I'm stuck on the word exposure today, so I apologize. But it really is. It's, so much of what we do is really focused in delivery of what we're good at, right? We try to get better at the things that we're good at, and so you really don't have a need or interest, really. You don't even have an idea of the types of things that they're dealing with, although they have some similarities clearly. Some of the challenges that they face, and to be honest with you, some of the solutions they implement in overcoming those challenges are really innovative and transferable. So really having different perspectives and exposure to different types of commands is super valuable, and the LDP really gave me the opportunity to do that. And I think the biggest thing that I would tell anybody who's sitting on the phone that's looking to put a package together for the LDP is don't let yourself get too busy. Don't let that be an excuse for not putting a package together. I went years where I was just like, I just don't have time. I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. I just, I'm too busy. I can't get all my work done, let alone put a package together, because it is a little burdensome. It's absolutely a worthwhile program. The time is well spent. And so make sure that you carve out enough time to put the package together, do the best job you can to put it together, and really try to expose, the attributes about yourself in your application that make you a good investment of time and resources for the command. That really highlights that you're interested, you're motivated, and you're capable, and you're really open to growth. Because I think that's what the LDP is really taking the opportunity, and it really is self-motivated in a lot of ways. You have to really drive your learning opportunity in the LDP. There's a lot of good resources. You've got a lot of good kind of guidance from the entire team that runs the program, but you're only going to get out of it as much as you really put in. And so I think the command recognizes that, and so therefore when you put your application together, make sure you try to expose why you're worth the investment. And I think that's really what's going to give you the opportunity to get in the program. So I think that's all I had to share.
Thank you, Travis. I definitely appreciate you sharing that. A couple things I wanted to add to that. 100%, he is spot on. One thing I want to, and I reiterate this in the LDP training session for the folks that are indoctrinated into the program, they are selected, is you're only going to get what you put in, and if you come in here and you just come into the program and you're just trying to fill the requirements out, you're not going to get what you could get. There's quite a bit of benefit. And if you do not leverage me and the team surrounded by the the LDP, which is the your training representative at your local command, your BD, your supervisor, your mentor, NFI, Naval Facilities Institute. If you do not leverage us, it is not quite the experience that you could get. There are a lot of opportunities. I ensured that rotational opportunities, program, courses, and we definitely do our best to provide you those opportunities to get that exposure, to get the enhancement of those competencies. And then I think I saw in the chat there was a question on when did Mr. Baker graduate. He is one of the newer graduates. He had just turned in his package this last cycle. He's a level 3 graduate just recent. So again, I'd like to congratulate him on his accomplishment. I know how much he worked and how many different things how big of a stretch he had. So definitely appreciate his time as well. But did I have any other questions for Mr. Baker specifically, or Travis, that you wanted to kind of ask him about the LDP? Nope. Okay. So that is our last speaker, unless Mr. King is here. Tony King. Nope. Okay. Well, that is our last speaker, unfortunately. And at this point, the presentation is over. If you would like to ask any further questions or maybe something offline, I will stay online for a little bit longer. Please reach out to me via email or MS Teams if you would like me to facilitate with the information from any of the speakers. I would definitely have no issues doing so. The Ccrc will also be